Well, good morning and welcome back to the Common Farm Flowers channel. We are in the middle of a heat wave, so I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to finish cutting one job, make one job, two jobs, and cut another job, which I will then arrange this afternoon for delivery tomorrow for a party. It's horrible hot. The garden's hating it. I kind of left it until yesterday. We had had a good dump of rain previous weekend, and then as the week's gone on, the weather's got hotter and hotter and hotter, and yesterday the roses were shattering in the heat. The flowers are bleaching in the heat. It's not what it should be for a balmy English summer. It's about 10 degrees hotter than it would have been in my childhood. In my dreams, we have summers which are, you get a little rain, and then a lovely balmy day might be in the low 20s Celsius. And yesterday, I think we got to 33, 34, which is, for here, really tough. We garden on thick clay, and in the winter it's a marsh. In the summer, the top layer of the soil bakes solid, and I have to hold my nerve about watering because I believe very strongly that if we're flower growers, I'm growing flowers for sale, the point of the exercise is to feed nectar and pollen and make a welcoming environment for invertebrates. So I'm putting nectar and pollen into the environment, partly half of the invertebrates, and then I cut the flowers and sell them in order to pay for the environment to exist. And so that seems counterintuitive to do too much watering. And we've had 2 years of rain. It's been very, very wet for 2 years. So I've hardly watered for really a long time. But yesterday I gave in. And because what happens is in the afternoon, if you look too closely, you can see the flowers beginning to shrivel up. They are literally cooking. And my perennial phlox, for example, which is usually a really great crop for me, the flowers they're shattering on the top. So they're fine for bouquets and, I can use them, but that incredible wow factor paniculata shape of flowers that I normally have, I shouldn't think I'll have them this year. Anyway, so at some point, the small plants, so I've got direct sown zinnias and direct sown cosmos, which are about this big, and their roots just won't be far down enough yet to reach the water table, which will be still there, but kind of down here. They've got to get down there. So I was watering, and the dahlias, which are quite shallow rooted, were looking very tired yesterday. And I've just got some annuals that are coming on quite nicely for the end of the season. And you can see them literally just crisping up. So I've given up, and I've given in, and I'm watering a bit. Anyway, whinge over. I thought you might like to come with me. I've cut most of the jobs that I'm doing, but I've got a few bits that I'm going to cut, and I thought you might be interested in particularly the gig I'm doing tomorrow, which is a party at a local bigwig. We've got lots of bigwigs around here. Anyway, a local bigwig is having a party, and they've asked me to make for their guests posies, which, it's going to be 35 degrees in the shade. So, first they were talking about having flower crowns, and I really encouraged them not to, because the flowers will be put in the place of each person at some point during the afternoon before the dinner, and so that it looks lovely when they arrive. And a flower crown sitting, even if it's in the shade, wilting in the sun, I just said no. I said no. You're allowed to say no to your client. I said no. But what I thought would be a good idea would be kind of flat-backed, like really enormous corsages which you could wear as a wrist corsage, or you could tie it into your hair, or you could tie it around your waist, or you could hang it around your neck. So you could do whatever you wanted to do with it. You could leave it in the little jar. That's the other thing, is sometimes people have really good ideas about what they would like what their guests will enjoy, but their guests don't always want to put flowers in their hair. So it's good to give them an option, and then nobody is cross or offended, but everyone can enjoy themselves if they like. So I'm going to make some of those as well. There's another thing that's going on, in that the party is, they have somebody who is going to be talking about the season and the meaning of the flowers, and how connected we all are with the soil and the light and all of that sort of stuff. So what I'm going to do is, for those wrist corsages, I'm thinking of them as wrist corsages, but of course they can be anything they want them to be. Anyway, so for those, I'm going to give them things which are interesting, because then it'll give this person who's leading the party, leading the talk, something to talk about. So I'm going to give them things like oak leaves for strength, Nigella seed heads, because they're part of the story of, the flower is over, but the seed head is beautiful and it contains the promise for next year, that sort of thing. But also, I know that sometimes people are being told something, and so they're learning something. So you could go very heavy on the learning side, but equally, often people are not necessarily concentrating very hard, or thinking about something else, or would just like to see something really pretty. So I'm also going to give them rosebuds and sweet peas. So I'm trying to please all the people all the time, while controlling the fact that they don't have to wear flower crowns in the heat. Anyway, I thought you might like to come along and see the process. All right, let's go. So this is part of what I'm doing this morning, and I cut all this yesterday, and it's just been sitting here in the cool. And some of the roses are going to need picking over, you see, but that's okay. And here are the phlox, hit on the head by the heat. So just pull those out. Some of them are all right. They're all right. Anyway, on we go. It's really interesting. These helichrysum yesterday afternoon were literally looking as though they were going to crisp up and die. But they are now turgid with water after a cooler night and looking much better. But I was thinking they were all going to die. Anyway, I'm going to give everything a little bit of a water today. Not too much, but just... well, what you want to do with watering is you want to soak them at the roots. Really soak them at the roots. You don't need to water the plant, this bit. What you want is to water right down here. So that's what I'm going to do. It's a beautiful time of day. The light. I'm also conscious that the wrist corsages are going to be worn at night. It's an evening party. So as the evening comes on and the light sinks, it's good to have white because it sort of glows. So I'm going to keep it quite white. If I cut, I haven't got any nearby, but if I cut for them scabious in this colour, which I have, it would sort of disappear in the night. It just sort of becomes little black blobs. So I'm going to go very light colour. Isn't this double feverfew just stunning? We're going to have some of this. Nigella seed heads before they're overwhelmed by the courgette, which Fabrizio tucked in there without my noticing. Ruthless. Ooh, yes, lavender. Very good for the wrist corsages. Just while we're passing, the thing that's doing best in this heat is the Achillea. Doesn't mind it in the slightest. Very happy. Phew. And for the wrist corsages, little wild seed heads are great. This is one of the reasons it's worth seeing if you can order flowers from a nearby flower farmer, because this is hard to get at market, and for someone who wants something to feel wild, then this is what you need. This is a great time of year to cut oak with acorns coming, because they won't fall off. If you cut them when the acorns are large at the end of the sort of into the autumn, then the acorns generally just fall straight out. You can see how they are still held, actively held in by the cup. It's the cup goes round the budding acorn, so it won't fall out. Later on, the cup opens up and the acorn just falls out, because that's the point of the exercise. So they're not so great in arrangements, but now they're brilliant. Right, so as usual, I'm multitasking. Waste not, want not, it says down here. So I've got paper ready because my friend Michelle rang while I was in the garden and said, could she have some glads as a gift to her neighbour whose birthday it is. So I've cut the glads. I need a photograph for the edit, the new edit of the Flower Farmer's Year, about wrapping, how I can wrap something like a bunch of glads or any kind of market flowers. So I've got the paper ready, and when my friend Georgie appears to pick up the birthday bouquet for her father's partner, she's also going to pick up these flowers. So then they will have had a bit of a drink by then. So then I will wrap them and photograph them. I know that they will go straight to Michelle, who will give them straight to her neighbour. So they will go back into water very quickly. So that's okay. Then meanwhile, I'm going to make the birthday bouquet for Georgie's father's partner in here. And I'm doing it in a vase because I'm hoping that the vase will come back. I'm trying to do less and less packaging. So I'm not a B Corp, but I quite like the idea of always pushing your eco practice more. And so, you know, the days of my having large boxes and so on are gone, and I'm trying to do everything in vases which might come back. So I happen to know Georgie's father's partner, and so I know that she won't mind if I say, when you're finished with the bouquet, if you don't want to keep the vase, I'll have it back, and then we use it again, and it's not single-use packaging. It's not plastic, it's not single-use anything, it's just, you know, no packaging. Right, so I'm going to make that bouquet, then I'm going to make the bouquet for the ball, then I'm going to make the 8 thank you posies for the ball, and then my lovely local MP, Sarah Dyke, is coming to collect all of those things, and then I'm going to make the corsages, and it's about 8 o'clock. I know that clock's wrong. I need a new clock. This clock has given up the ghost. So new clock o'clock. So yeah, I better get on because Georgie is coming to pick up at 9. Right, so that's the first thing to be, and it's going to be collected in a minute. And those glads. So I am going to put this in a bag so that at least my client can carry it, but I will probably get the bag back as well as the vase. I could really do with, you know how this is really working for me in the studio, but I could really do something to cover up the dishwasher, which is a gift for someone like me, because it means I can put all my vases through the dishwasher when they come back from jobs. But it's not very pretty, is it? It looks a bit modern in my setup. Anyway, right, on with the next thing. Oh, I'm quite pleased with that. I just took a picture of this and I worked out if I stand like this, you can't see the dishwasher. So that's something at least. On we go. And that's the second bouquet done for the ball. Look, I love these dark glads are just so fab. And they're like surprises in the bouquet. They're going to come out and surprise the people. Oh, I love them. They're so velvety and exciting. A little depth to a very, otherwise sometimes summer, especially when it's very hot like this, summer floristry can look a little wispy, a little kind of drying out too quickly. I mean, yes, a nice, you don't want to look too wedding-y. It's a ball, not a wedding, but look at that depth of field in there. Whoa, yes. So right now I'm making 8 thank you bouquets, and I'm going to make them out of this little mix. And they're going to go, in my spirit of no packaging, they're thank you posies, and they're going in these jars. So the people who get the posies can take the jars home. If they know who I am, they can return them. But it's no cellophane, no plastic, very simple. Just a raffia tie for each one. So look, sweet little posy makes a lovely thank you present. Ah, very good, isn't it? Very pleased with that. And they're easy to manage. The glass is recyclable, but they're still a really nice present. Right, better make another 7. Yes, there, 8 posies to be given away at the ball, but they'll be pretty and attractive as a sort of bonus. I'm going to take them over in the end, which I wouldn't normally do, but it's in my gift. I can get in the car and have the air conditioning on for 20 minutes while I drive over there. Right, it's 5 to 12. Feels as though it should be about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyway, 5 to 12. So I'm now going to make these wrist corsages and put them somewhere very cool for tomorrow, because then I will deliver them tomorrow afternoon. But I'm going to make them now, despite the weather, because they'll be really close to their necks in water, which always really helps flowers. Aren't they dinky? And you see how I'm emptying all those buckets? So as I empty them, I'm taking them out and I'm pouring the water on like some of the trees that we planted last winter. This is a heat wave, is a good time to just pour a bucket of water onto a tree if it's only been in the ground for less than a year. Because even though it was planted bare root in the middle of the winter, won't have got the roots right down. So my ginkgo biloba is going to get a bucket of water right now. So the posies are in these boxes, which are incredibly useful. So I'm putting my labels on them and I hope they come back. But trying to avoid packaging, living in hope. But this way I get to be completely packaging free. Hooray! Right, so I'm going to make I'm going to make the wrist corsages. I've filled up all my jars. There'll be 3 per jar. I've pre-cut my raffia so I can bind them and get them in water quickly. It's heating up even in here with the windows closed, but it's blimming hot. So I'm going to make 1, and you'll see how I do them, and then I'll make the rest without the film on, because then I can listen to a podcast or something to entertain myself. So I'm going to start with a bit of Mighty Irk, because the chap who's leading the evening, that'll give him something to talk about. And we're going to have lovely bit of sea holly, lovely bit of bronze fennel, kind of going to seed a bit. Dock. Actually, it's not dock. I think it's curly leafed dock. Fabrizio is the expert on what all our different kinds of dock are. But it's a dockish sort of thing. Then we have one. Problem is, I need to take them out of the bucket really. Anyway, I'm going to just do this for you, and then I'm going to get myself sorted out. I've got 14 to make. Sweet pea. Hello, sweet pea. Rosebud. The roses are shattering almost as I cut them, so this is going to be fun, whether it lasts or not, but we'll have to give it a go. Bit of, lavender, lavande. And that's what happens when I shove everything in the bucket when I'm cutting. And if it's very hot weather, when I'm pulling them out, they will pull each other up and they're not in the water. A little bit of scabiosa and I'll cut this out. Nigella seed head. And some feverfew. So what I'm doing is I'm making like a miniature sheaf. It's got to be flat, so it can, you imagine it laying flat on someone's arm like this. So it's like making a miniature, so obviously it's for a dinner party, but it's like making a miniature funeral sheaf. These things are all, the principles are the same. You know, again and again we do the same thing. So I'm just making, basically you make a tiny posy and just make sure that the leaves don't get caught up with each other. Allow the interesting things like the nigella to show. I'm so hot, I'm just pouring. I know in America, I don't know what 30 degrees is about 95 Fahrenheit, I think. And so you probably think, I don't even know I'm born. But we don't have air conditioning and our houses are not designed for this weather. And so I am designed for the Outer Hebrides. My background, my heritage, genetic heritage. Well, I don't know because I've never done one of those tests, but I'm a Scot slash. The English part of me is Borders Reivers. So they would gallop across the border and I'm a sheep stealer, which is why I'm only 5'2". Means I can cover rough ground at speed, carrying a sheep over my shoulders. Yeah, unlike my husband who's 6'4" and with these long legs, very difficult rough ground, falling over all over the place. And then we'll have the little, it's like a mini posy, but it's flat. It's flat. So when I tie it up, you could wear it as a wrist corsage. Here is the, and if I were not making it for this particular client and I were doing it for fun, or for somebody else, I would not have used the oak. The oak is quite dark and a bit gloomy, but I'm anticipating that the person who's leading the kind of summer night conversation that's going to be happening will like the oak because it's very representative of growth and strength, and you know, it's good, it's a good thing to have. And I'm not cutting it off too short because I want it to be able to sit in its little jar. And there's one. Right, I'm going to make 14 of them. And actually what's quite nice is they can then go back to back in the jars and they'll make little posies, so they can have them down the table, look very pretty, between the table centres, which the gardener is doing, and they can have the ribbon down the tables, and then people can help themselves and be involved in the process, which is like a miniature version of making the bouquet, the little tiny posy itself. It's really good. It's good to get involved and touch things and hold them and be involved with them, rather than just be handed something on a plate and you don't have to do anything. So hopefully I think it will work well with the chap who's leading the evening. I may be wrong, but anyway, doing my best, thinking about it. Right, I'm going to do the rest of them. Bye. Right, so I'm just making the last one. They've got lighter and hairier as I've made them, but they still have that flat back. It's really important so that they can lay flat on someone's wrist. And it's very nice, I think, that they're not all the same. I think it's really, especially as this is a small party, they're like 14 guests. So everybody's got one of these corsages. And what I've ended up doing is the backs of most of them, the backs of most of these corsages are actually the sweet peas, which are quite strong. They've been really struggling in the heat, the sweet peas. They are dying off at speed. And I'm a great believer in not fighting with, you know, the weather is the weather, and trying to keep something alive for a long period of time when the weather is against you means that you end up using a lot of water and it's not really successful. And annuals, some annual, you know, these sweet peas have been flowering away quite happily for several weeks now. So they're feeling quite mature. And if we were having a normal summer, then we'd have had rain and the days wouldn't have been so hot. And I could be comfortably assume that I would have sweet peas really through to the end of July and into early August. But I suspect that after this 30+ degree heat for a lot of this week and some of last, the sweet peas will be gone. And I'm just not going to fight with them. You know, it's a lesson that my mother taught me. If a plant doesn't want to do something, let it go. So these posies, they're sweet. You could wear them as a buttonhole, you could wear them as your hair, in your hair. Imagine you have your hair up, you could have it at the back. You can have them as wrist corsages. You know, they're kind of multi-purpose. But I've also ended up putting 2 to a jar. And so they've made really sweet little jam jar posies. And I know that the client's gardener is making the table centres, so these are not going to argue with the table centres, but they can be an extra bonus. And then people can take their posy out and wear it however they like. So there are 14 of them. I'm not throwing any water away, I'm keeping it to put on the garden because I can't afford to waste it. But there we have, they're sweet, they're all different. I quite like it. and they're lighter. They started off quite heavy, and they've got lighter. But it's nice because they can choose which one they can choose them, and they can, you know, do what they like. So I've then cut 14 lengths of ribbon, so they can tie the ribbon around them, and they can wear them on the hair or the wrist or whatever they want to do. And I'm going to leave these in here overnight for delivery tomorrow. And actually, when you have knocking everything over. To keep them cool, just give them a spritz and they'll be fine for tomorrow. But important that I remember, they are here at the moment. This is the coolest place in the studio. Tomorrow morning, the sun comes round and lands here. So I must move them because I'm going for a walk tomorrow morning, I think, if I wake up in time. So I will not be in here at 10 o'clock in the morning when the sun comes round. These get delivered at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The dinner is in the evening. So actually I'm going to move them up now so that I don't risk them being struggling tomorrow. Just count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Right, there we go. So now I'm going to go and deliver those other ones to the ball. Nice excuse to sit in an air-conditioned car for 10 minutes. And that, I think I'm going to call it a day now. So there you are. That's a Saturday, Flower Farm Saturday in mid-July. We've had a bucket of flowers collected by a client who ordered a mixed bucket. I've made a big bouquet for a birthday, a big bouquet to be a prize at the ball, and 8 thank you bouquets. I've made 14 posies, these wrist corsages, and it's 1:30. So I'm going to go and have lunch, and then at 3 o'clock, when they're expecting me, I'm going to deliver those other flowers. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and I hope you're not too hot and that your garden is not crisping up like mine is. Mine is just crisping. So much for flower farming. Yeah, global warming. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. I'll see you very soon. Bye. Waving. Oh God. That freaked you out. Right. Bye. You know what? It is way, way, way cooler in the studio than it is out here. And if I deliver those flowers to a marquee now, I suspect they will just be put in a hot corner. And by the time the event happens this evening, they will be dead as a doornail. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take them over there at 6 because it's my reputation on the line here. I'll do it later. Blimey, it's nearly 40 degrees in my yard. So I'm going to drive my car before taking these flowers over to, sorry, I'm not driving on the road. Before I take these flowers over to the newt, ow, it's too hot to drive. I am going to put the car in the shade and leave the windows wide open so it cools down a bit. Because if I put the flowers in the car, ow, then if I put the flowers in the car and it's this hot, they will just cook. Anyway, I'm going to drive along here. If I park in the shade here, the shade moves round, and the car will cool down a little bit. Blimey, you see, I'm under the shade of the tree. It's only 38 degrees in the shade. Welcome to Somerset, everybody.